Hello, everyone, and welcome to Patriot Underground. Today is May 16th, 2024. Thank you so much for joining me, folks, to discover the truth beneath the surface. As always, I really do appreciate everybody out there taking the time to listen. And today, it is my great pleasure to welcome back Dave, XRPLion, for our fourth conversation. Dave and I connected a few months ago, and we have a really great rapport. We put out three, I think, fascinating interviews. We're going to build upon that information tonight. And just like I told the audience last time, it's probably a good idea to just listen through the first time. Dave's going to present a whole bunch of information. So just relax, take it all in. And then once you've heard it the first time, go back a second time, as many people do with Dave's videos, including me, and grab yourself a notebook, take some notes, and really just let it all sink in, because this is really key information that I think folks are going to enjoy. So Dave, it's great to see you again, my friend. How have you been?
Oh, thank you so much. I've been busy. I have been really busy. We are at a precipice, and I know that's a term that you like to describe as things are coming together. Disclosure. And think of disclosure as the culmination of a time when things that were secret or unknown are now being put out there for people to see. And it
Yeah,
comes in many different shapes and forms. I was
indeed.
sharing with Patriot before we came on the fact that I had just got some information today that plays right into some things that I've talked about before, but was at a completely different level than even myself or Patriot had even contemplated. And this is what we can expect over the days and weeks ahead. We're going to find out things that we thought were true that aren't. And we're going to find out a lot of things that we thought were not are true.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to find out about people that are still alive. And you've heard some of the names that I've mentioned on the show here and in other shows.
Mm-hmm.
This is the largest and the greatest transfer of wealth, of prosperity, of resources, of what was taken from us in the past. And I'm talking about our lineage being brought forward, having been laid up since the beginning of time. I mean, we have been dumbed down to the point where when you actually see what you're going to see, and I'm going to talk about some new stuff today that I've never talked about before. We're going to bring in relationships that apply across the board. So you'll say, hey, I remember that about that. Oh, this is how it applies over here. And Patriot, what's the name of the game where you have to come up with who did it? The butler and the library with the
I think it's
candlestick.
called Clue, if I remember correctly.
Okay, Clue.
Yeah.
Okay. Think about it like Clue. We're sitting here gathering up the pieces, and in the end, they tell the story. But if we don't look at each one of the pieces, we'll never get the story. And I was sharing that with Patriot before we got started, and it was like, ding, the little light bulb comes on, and it went, oh wow, I never thought about it that way.
Mm.
Now, I'm not here to persuade you. I'm not here to direct your thinking. I'm not here to get you to agree with me. I'm here, as I'm sure Patriot would agree for himself. We're here to disseminate information that hasn't been known. We've done our own vetting. We've had it vetted by third parties. Everything is what we believe to be accurate and true. We can't make any guarantees. It's all for educational purposes only. We're not making any investment decisions or advice for you. So, just sit back, take it in, decide what you like, what you don't like. You don't have to like everything that you hear, and that's fine. But at least at the end of the day, you can walk away and say, I was given enough information to be able to make an informed decision for myself. And that's all that matters.
I couldn't agree more. And it really is about what resonates with you. This is something that got talked about, I think, a lot more a little while ago, probably more like, in the beginning of my journey back in 2021, 2022. I think there was more of that attitude where people were just, soaking in information. And the overall idea, and you heard many hosts talking about it, is to just, like Dave said, listen, and what resonates with you, and what doesn't. But you're being given all of this information. And as you pointed out, oftentimes, and this has happened to me throughout my experience in this journey, I initially hear something and I think, oh, that doesn't sound right, or oh, I don't know, that sounds kind of far-fetched, or oh, I don't know if I believe that, or oh, that's contrary to what somebody else that I follow says. That's okay. And you have to keep in mind, though, that I mean, that's really what this process is supposed to be all about. It's supposed to be a journey, a quest to gather as much information as you can, sift through it, use your discernment. Neither Dave nor myself are here to persuade you. I think it's a really good point that you made. We're not here to try to tell you what to think. We're just simply presenting information, and folks can decide for themselves whether or not it resonates. But, you know, going back to my what I was saying there, my point is that I've had plenty of experiences where I initially thought that something was just way too out there. And then I came to realize that actually it wasn't so far out there. And I think there's going to be a lot of surprises on multiple different fronts the deeper we get into 2024. Like Dave was sort of alluding to there, it's really a process of revelation that we're going through. We're revealing the truth. And I don't mean Dave and I specifically. We don't have a monopoly on the truth, obviously. But both of us, certainly we have our hearts in the right place. So hopefully folks will remember that as they listen to this, and hopefully will enjoy this conversation. So I thought maybe we could start out with kind of building upon a subject that we had talked about last time, which was the ZIMS. And the last time I had you on, this was pretty like hot off the press. You had done a video, I think maybe a day or two before I had you on, that did really, really well, breaking down the prices of the ZIM bonds. And I gather that you have some new information about what's going on in Zimbabwe, what's happening with the supply of the ZIMS, and any other information certainly that you want to touch upon related to the pricing. I know you had sent me a slide. Maybe we could pull that up if you'd like. But tell us a little bit. Why don't we start with Zimbabwe, and then we can sort of branch out from there. So give us an update. What's happening there?
Wonderful. Before I do that, I just want to, again, thank you for making your platform available for this. And I want to encourage all of your listeners to thank you, because it's so rare and refreshing to find a platform with people like yourself who care enough to care for others.
Thank you.
And I know you care for others more than you have time to care for yourself, because I know what that calling is. And I just want to encourage all of you out there, listeners. There's a tremendous amount of time that it takes to do this. And this man is dedicated. Let me tell you.
Well, you are as well. I happen to
as
know
hot as this information is, I mean, I'm like, hey, is there any way to squeeze me in like 2 weeks from next Friday? Seriously. And it's only because an act of God, we're able to do this show right now. And I appreciate that. I appreciate everything that you're doing for everybody out there, for your love and understanding for humanity, your compassion.
Thank you.
And it shows. And I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Well, thank you, Dave. And it's an honor to hear that. And it's humbling, quite frankly, to hear that. But I will say that, you know, I have an equal amount of respect for the work that you've done. And that's why I mean, I said this, I think probably in our first 3 conversations. God always shows up on time, and he connects his people exactly when they're supposed to be connected. I mean, you and I had really never spoken until a couple of months ago. And once we connected, it was like, you know, we instantly had that rapport, and we felt that resonance, I think, with each other. And exactly. That's really one of the things that I think is special about the friendship that we're forming. So thank you for those kind words, Dave. I really do appreciate it. And then I will say this, that, you know, my audience is absolutely amazing. I mean, obviously there are going to be trolls in every video. There's always going to be the agitators and so forth. We know who they are, and they're getting identified, believe me, on both on a small scale and a large scale. And we might even touch upon that during this conversation. I don't know, but I will tell you that my audience is just absolutely amazing. The core group of people that have supported me throughout the beginning, you know, when I had no followers, I had no background. I was just an ordinary American coming forward with a voice, trying to get at the truth. And I had so many people rally behind me, and it's changed my life. So since you brought it up, I just wanted to, you know, do a little hat tip to both you and to my audience. So thank you very much. So, all right. So tell us about Zimbabwe. What's going on? Give us the lowdown.
Well, here's what's going on in Zimbabwe. After that news broke about the pricing for the Zim bond, based upon the in-country rate, based upon the exchange rates coming from the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe on April 5th, when they introduced their gold-backed ZIG, Z little I capital G, for Zimbabwe gold,
Mhm.
there is a stampede going on around the world to get these.
This is actually 100% true. As a matter of fact, Dave and I were communicating after our last show. I do believe they were hovering around $170 or, somewhere in that general range on Banknote World. And after we did our show, and by the way, I just want to remind everybody out there that neither Dave nor myself get compensated in any way. And he already mentioned this isn't financial advice, but I just want folks to understand Dave, myself, we're not making any money off of telling you these things. But anyway, Banknote World, it was hovering around 170. And then after that conversation, it shot up to, at one point, it was at $400. I saw them going for that price, and I do believe they're hovering around 350 now. Last time I checked, but
Yeah, I checked before the show, and that's exactly where they were. But with that being said, again, it's not investment advice, but here's what it is. It's my heart, it's Patriot's heart, it's our understanding that without these humanitarian project initiatives, humanity doesn't get taken care of. There isn't money allotted for these programs outside of the humanitarian efforts coming from the Dong, the Dinar, the Zim. Because the cabal's plan was to take all this all out. That plan began in the year 2000, and they planned on having it all wrapped up by 2030, and we were all supposed to be gone by 2025.
mm-hmm.
But their plan didn't factor in the one and only, the creator of all things, and that he had the ultimate say so.
He had a different plan.
Had a different plan, he had a different purpose, and all of that was created before the beginning of time.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean? It means that whatever we do with him, nothing can come against it. He comes against it. So it can't interfere with his plan. So when we're in line with him and we're doing his work, his plan together, it's unstoppable. It's kind of like coming to realize that everything in the fifth dimension has already looked at what was needed in the third dimension and already made it so.
Mm-hmm.
Like God, already putting all the gold inside the earth that we would ever need, putting all the oil inside the world, inside the earth, and then making it renewable. So that renews itself.
Yep. He created this world in abundance.
Yeah, but we're told the opposite.
That's right.
We're told about the lack. We're told about the fact that it's a rare element. It's scarce.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't be farther from the truth.
Yep.
And I'll drop one little thing, and then I'll circle back around. Patriot. I was telling Patriot, I just heard today that they already have technology to create gold using cold fusion as much as you want. And it's part of the technologies that have been kept from us.
Mm-hmm.
So not only do the Asian elders have the spigot that they're tied into directly, and they can mine and store as much gold as they ever wanted to, but at some point we could do it. We could make our own gold using cold fusion through some basic elements.
Mm-hmm.
Tesla proved it. His mentor proved it. And that was hidden from us. But we're going to come to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at just that simple analogy.
By the way, Gene Decode and I was sharing with Dave that Gene had talked about that on the show quite a while ago, and yeah, I mean this whole I think the way that he puts it is like they can print gold. I think is actually the term that he uses, but it has to do with like you said, cold fusion frequency matching, right?
Well, imagine having a little one of those in the garage or the work shed.
That'd be nice.
Honey, do you need a new bracelet? Take it down to the jeweler. Hey, here's 4 pounds of gold. Here's what we want.
Mm.
But if we can look at that simple analogy, and now we can apply that across the board to the things that are taking place, nothing's impossible. That's how we got rid of the cabal. That's how we got rid of the deep state. That's how we got rid of the Khazarian mafia.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because their plan wasn't a plan for good. It was a plan for evil. But the word says that what the enemy meant for evil, God already meant for good.
Yep.
And that's what we've been walking out. We're not waiting for it to happen. It's already done.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing new is being created that wasn't already created. It's just manifesting, having already been created so we can see it.
It's being revealed.
It's being revealed. That's the disclosure. That's the secret information that wasn't known that's now coming into the light. And
That's
it's
right.
as simple as that. So
Mm-hmm.
when we think about that plan to rid the world of everybody so the cabal could have the world for themselves, it was doomed from day one. Now, was there a lot of pain and suffering and destruction along the way? Unfortunately, there was. Was there a price to pay for that? Yes, there was. But if we consider that God knowing everything, he already knew all that was going to happen, and he already made provisions for it. And I don't want to go too far into that, but let's just say that everything is not always permanent, and that we go beyond this lifetime. We step into glory, from glory to glory. So now that we know that we're not on the edge of facing extinction, and that the great guys do win and have won, and we're just walking it out, we're kind of like the Israelites in the desert. Moses went back the second time to tell Pharaoh, God said to let my people go. Remember, the first time was just to get them to be able to go out into the desert to worship and praise God 1 day a week. And Pharaoh said no to that. So then God said, okay, well, then you're going to have to let my people go. And of course, he had to harden Pharaoh's heart so he would just kick them out. And what did he do when he kicked them out, Patriot? He sent them with everything they wanted. Just take it all, he said. Just take it all and go. And then about the time they were all gone and out of sight, he's like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? They just took all the riches of Egypt. I don't have anything left. And then he took off after him, thinking that his band of, let's just say, 100 chariots and 200 men were going to take back what 2 million people just walked off with.
With God's blessing, by the way.
Yeah, that's kind of sheer stupidity in that respect. But, it's no different now. Everything has been taken back from the cabal. They have nothing. All of these narratives for, the CBDCs and all the stuff that they're gonna do, et cetera, et cetera. It's just a bunch of baloney. It's all fake.
It's what they wanted to do. I think it's what we're being put through in so many different ways is a simulation of exactly where they wanted to take us. But at the same time, we have the white hats in the background constantly providing comms for us. That's really, in essence, what this has been this entire time, is providing comms, thus giving us breadcrumbs along the way to just remind us and give us the faith ultimately, or the belief that they are in fact there, so that we don't have to take matters into our own hands. And this entire time, that's exactly what's been happening. And I mentioned Revelation a moment ago. I mean, what's being revealed, of course, is all of what's been hidden. And that includes both the good and the bad. So the all of the good things that we just talked about in there, I mean, this is just, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, I'm sure Dave could probably go on and on about all of the patents that are going to be released, the free energy, the med beds, all of these things are going to be revealed, all of these technologies. But at the same time, all of the evil, as you put it, as we're walking out, is also being exposed.
Exactly.
Multiple different levels.
You said it perfectly. Perfectly. It's like having somebody tell the story. Here's what they were going to do. Here's what it would have looked like. Not to represent it is, but what was. Like when I talked about the SEC, right?
Mm-hmm.
The CEO of Library coming forward to talk about what the SEC did to him. The fact that the lawyers showed up, the bankers showed up in his conference room, closed the door, and said, if you want to play ball, you're going to give us 50% of your tokens. That was to tell us what their plan had been,
Mm-hmm.
not what was going to happen now. When Gary Gensler's at MIT, having already said in 2018, XRP is not a security. Ethereum is. If you just take that one little comment about XRP, I was looking at something last night that came through on one of the crypto channels talking about Ripple. They don't call it XRP. They call it Ripple. That's like saying we're going to call Yamaha Scooter.
Okay. Yeah.
You're like, well, why? It's Yamaha. Well, because we don't want anybody to know about Yamaha, so we're going to say Scooter. It makes no sense. And only on a couple of occasions has Brad Garlinghouse ever even come out and said it's not Ripple, it's XRP on the talk shows. That's just to make sure that a few people understand it's XRP, not Ripple.
The ones who have ears to hear, of course.
Exactly. But
Rest of the
everybody else
people.
is just going to go, oh, Ripple. They're in a lawsuit. They're this, they're that. But XRP isn't. Ripple doesn't own XRP other than what they've purchased in the secondary market. They're holding it just like myself and countless others are. But we don't call it Patriot. We don't call it Lion. No, it's XRP. And it was never designed to be a currency. See, these are the tells. These are the little things that they put out there. So we're playing the game of Clue. Okay, remember, XRP is not a security. What does that mean? Okay, what did Gary Gensler say about this? What did he say about Ethereum? Ethereum's a security. Okay, we got one holding the knife and we got one not holding the knife. Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? See? And then we start hearing the other little pieces of the narrative. As much as I do not like to play that game, I always win. I'm serious and I'm not boasting. It's just like, I know I don't want to play it. And then my wife and I end up winning. Why? Because I keep track of the pieces in the story. Yeah. And my brain just processes a little faster than everybody else. So I'm getting rid of the ones that don't qualify as quickly as I can. Now, is that an active process in my head I'm conscious about? No, it just happens. And I think for most of us, we would call that a gut feeling, a gut reaction. It resonates with me. It doesn't resonate with me. And a lot of times it's just one little piece of information and it goes click. You go, wait a minute. Now I see the story. See, and this is how God reveals things to me. He'll have me working on 10 or 15 different things. Like I was doing something last night and I spent 45 minutes on it and then it was gone. We were done with it. It just stopped. And I'm like, okay. And I'm just waiting for the next thing to drop. And then something else pops up and I'm running with that. Now, if I really paid attention, like I was playing the game Clue, I'd be keeping track of all the players and the parts and everything else. but I'm not doing that because I'm not looking for an outcome. He's pulling it all together at the end so I can see the outcome. And that's what I was sharing with Patriot. It's like the game of Clue. We just have to know what the clues are. They're hiding in plain sight for everybody to see.
Mhm.
Brad Garlinghouse using the word orders of magnitude. Well, you go look up orders of magnitude and it talks about base 10 math. Hello?
Mhm.
It's talking about base 10 math. This guy.
Mhm. Well, so much of this really, this process has been about sharpening our discernment. That's kind of the way I see it is that, the information, the way that I process information now is dramatically different than it even was like a year ago or a couple of years ago, because that's what this process has been. It's been a journey to not only, and I think not only to sharpen our discernment, but I also believe, and I don't know if you can weigh in on this as well, Dave, but I also have believed for a long time that this, um, in many ways, is a test. It's almost like an audition, um, for the future, for perhaps even our role in what's coming on the other side of all of this. And I think, like you pointed out, like so many people, a vast majority of people actually will hear what they want to hear, and they'll be distracted very easily, manipulated very easily. But there are a select few, relative select few, who have that discernment, who can sift through all of that confusion, all of that fog, and be able to extrapolate those key pieces of information that ultimately end up revealing the truth, that get us to that point of revelation. And that's, I think, a big part of what the Q operation was all about, to teach us to think that way, to hone our discernment skills. And obviously, like iron sharpens iron, excuse me, they knew that all of us were going to come together and have these conversations. Each of us would bring different pieces of the puzzle together. And at the end, there would just be this grand, beautiful tapestry that God had always willed his own people to bring into existence. But through that process, though, a lot of the wheat has to be separated from the chaff, and it's a painful process to go through. But I think as we're getting closer to the end, what we're starting to see is more and more, as more light comes into the world. It's almost this strange paradox, like where the darker it's getting, like they say, it's always darkest before the dawn. There's more and more information, there's more and more truth coming into the world, so that's the light. But at the same time, the darkness is rising up in its final death throes to try to counter that light, to try to suppress it, to try to suppress humanity, to try to keep our consciousness down. It's like that metaphor, many people have used it, of like the balloon or the beach ball being held down at the bottom of the pool, right, for so long. And then eventually, once the grip loosens, it's just like it just explodes and it pops out of the water. And I think we're getting awfully close to that point, and the cabal is doing everything that they can to suppress humanity. And we're seeing, obviously, as well in our own community, that a lot of individuals are being exposed for doing exactly that, for trying to create these distractions, to try to divide. That's always the litmus test that I have. And I know we're kind of going in some different directions here, and that's okay. But I think it's important for folks to understand, and I've talked about this recently, as more of the truth comes out, and as individuals that are instigators, agitators, controlled opposition, you can call them whatever you want, deep state actors, as they're getting exposed, it's going to be a painful process, because a lot of people have bought in to these narratives. A lot
Yeah.
of people
And
have bought into a lot of these lies, and in essence, and I could go on about it, but I think what's really happened is that there's a group, um, a network that has done exactly that. They've come in and they've established trust with people, and then they've manipulated that trust. And I think the beautiful thing, though, is that now the truth is starting to emerge. And we've had some really interesting new characters show up on the scene as well on that note. But I know, I mean, I kind of started this question asking about Zimbabwe, and we've woven all over the place. So do you want to comment on, do you want to go back to Zimbabwe? Do you want to comment on what I just said about the revelation that's happening right now in terms of our community? Or do you want to just
let me
continue?
talk about that, what we're talking about right now, and then I'll
Sure.
circle back around to the Zimbabwe stuff.
Sure.
I think the best way to again take a look at this. And of course, one thing's always say is hold it loosely.
Mhm.
But in doing so, you have to be careful that you are not trying to take a position to stand. And that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing a finite group of people who have taken a position about certain other people, not understanding the full ramifications. It's one thing if I don't like somebody, I don't have to be around them. But certain laws and certain executive orders have governance over actions. And that means you just can't be out there just flapping your gums. You can't be discrediting or disparaging people because you want to believe something different. You want to believe that, or you want others to believe what you believe, and that is these people are hurting people. When in fact, they're the ones that are saving people. Now, remember I told you my background, my dad was a police officer for 35 years. I grew up knowing the Hells Angels because he knew them. They built our pools. They built the retaining walls around our house. He didn't know them because he was involved with them. He knew them because he needed to know them as people, not under the label that they cared because of the things that they did otherwise. At the base of everything, the root is man is good, but he gets corrupted based upon his own narcissistic desires and the things that he's trying to do for himself. And I've talked about the sin nature, self-inflicted narcissism. Devil's plan was to get us to be like him. And boy, we bit it, hook, line, and sinker. And then we called it success. But if we can allow ourselves not to attach, just take it in as information. My wife's got a background in computer science. And she always talks about, are you giving me data or are you giving me something different from data to take in? So she wants to know if I'm giving her information to make a decision with, or it's just general information as a whole. In this arena, it's too easy to take just information to hear and then form an opinion about it. See, I'm not here for your opinion. Patriot's not here for your opinion. That's not why we do what we do. We do it so the information is out there and you can decide for yourself. Not try to determine if we're right or wrong. See, that's not the point.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. Yeah, it's about free will and it's about exercising your own discernment. And Dave and I will be the first ones to tell you to do that. But what's very interesting is that there are a number of individuals in the, in this controlled opposition side who are doing exactly the opposite. They're trying to tell you what to think. They're trying to tell you who to follow, who to listen to, who not to listen to. But that's what the enemy does. The enemy always inverts. That's their plan. They invert reality. They project what they do onto other people. It's classic projection, inversion of reality. And then there's this sort of, this process I think that people have to go through because we've been engaged in this unprecedented warfare. The world's never seen anything like this mind war, in essence, that's going on. I believe that's the way that Q even referred to it. This psychological warfare that's happening right now, that's playing out. And what really upsets me, and I don't want to make this the whole basis of our conversation, but what really upsets me is that it's not so much the personal attacks, because I've been attacked, you've been attacked, anybody who's prominent in this movement has been targeted. But what really upsets me is the manipulation of people who are genuinely just simply trying to figure out what's what. They're trying to navigate this whole process. And I mean, and it's understandable that we would have the enemy come in and try to usurp the movement, to try to divide. That's always their tactic. Because again, if if there's any conceivable way of what remains of the cabal to escape justice, their only hope is to divide our movement. Their only hope is to try to cause people to get so angry and disenfranchised and contented with everything that's happening, where they finally take matters into their own hands, and they're trying to engineer rebellion. They're trying to engineer civil war. They're trying to get us to turn on each other.
They're trying to create a fence.
Create a fence, because our greatest strength is in unity.
Right.
And they know that. And the only way that they can derail this process is to try to ruin the unity that we've built. And I think there are a lot of individuals out there like myself and many others who have watched this play out and weren't necessarily sure initially who was who and who the agitators were. And some of these people that, I actually even approached in good faith to try to give them a platform to bring their information out. But what's happening now is that they're being exposed. And that's the beautiful thing. So on the one hand, it really makes me angry on behalf of the people who are being manipulated. But on the other hand, praise God that all of these cockroaches are having the light shined on them now. And I could go on, but I'll just kind of leave it at that, because I don't want to go too deep with this. But let's go back to the Zims where we started. And let's talk a little bit about. So you said that the Zims are drying up.
Zims are drying up.
And there's some interesting information about what's happening within Zimbabwe that you had shared with me as well, as far as the black market. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, they're actually going after the people that are trying to smuggle in Zim bonds. Because remember, it's an in-country rate.
Now, the 21 days they had is now up, right?
Yeah, that expired at the end of April.
Right. Okay. All right.
So at that point, they were done with their exchange. So they had 21 days to deposit their ZWL into the bank for the redemption. Now, in country, let's just, for all intents and purposes, consider that a currency exchange. What we're being blessed with is the treatment as a full bond, guaranteed repayment at a significantly higher rate. And as I said before, I cannot tell you what the contract rate is. And that came right from the Lord. But the moment the in-country rate was made public, he released me to talk about that. And I've talked about that, and I post on that. In at least 2 days a week, I post the conversion value based on the in-country rate on my Twitter page. Just last night, I put out a thumbnail with the entire rate going over, almost 2 weeks.
Now, was that the one of the slides you had sent me, Dave?
I think I did. I think
Zig and Gold. That's the one, right?
Yeah, Zig and Gold.
Let me go ahead and pull that up so folks can see it.
Sure. Yeah, that's it right there. Now let me tell you what you're looking at. Okay. And I made this comment before, and now you're getting to see how it works. Okay. We knew that the Zim needed to have a digital currency that was backed 100% by gold. And I told you how the Asian elders came in and acquired all of the assets above ground in Zimbabwe. That's now allowing them to give everyone in Zimbabwe not only the house they were renting from the government, but the land for free. For free.
Sounds like Jasara to me.
Mm-hmm. So extravagant was this announcement that the news people couldn't believe it. They're really giving them their house that they've been paying rent on. Yes, they are. They're giving them the land. Yes. How can you prove this? The person that was talking was one of the 5 councilmen who was in charge of disseminating the project. He had no reason to be on there talking about it if it wasn't going to happen and it wasn't true. Now, I understand their hesitance in the beginning because they had 3 generations of corrupt governors. They got rid of the last generation governor about 2 months ago, maybe 2.5 months ago. And they brought in the new one. His first name's John. And almost a month to the day since he took office, they then came out on April 5th and he presented the new ZIG currency, which they had paper. They also have coins. I think starting for the coin, it's like 1/10 of an ounce and it works its way all the way up to an ounce. And then in the paper side, and they said the paper doesn't feel like money paper. It feels like bond paper.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned that.
They're being called bonds. And I think it starts, there's a 1 and a 2, a 3 and a 5, a 10, a 20, a 50, 100 and a 200. But what we're talking about is the 208 and 209 AA AB series. And I got some clarification. The AB series is the $50 trillion note. There's an AB and an AA series in the 50. There's only an AA in the 100 trillion. And there's far less printed in the AA for the 100 trillion than there are in the 50 trillion. And as I pointed out before, the most desirable for the redemption, because you redeem bonds and you exchange currency, is the 100 trillion and the 50 trillion. Now, as Patriot pointed out, when I first started talking about this, dripping out information, we were as low as $139 with a 10% discount on the 100 trillion ZIM bond. Today we're at what, 349?
Yeah, right around 350. Yeah.
349. Now, I told you that when I released all this, it was like the shot heard around the world. And it disrupted the whole network.
This was after the last show that we did.
Yeah. It went viral around the world. It's kind of like The Amazing Race. Can you find a Zim? Find a Zim and you win 2 weeks from Travelocity to Baja, Mexico. They assigned somebody to help everybody that's hearing this message. So you can call this telephone number right down here, 714, my glasses on, 766-4525. They're on Pacific Standard Time, and the person they've assigned to take your phone call, this is a business line, I'm told. His name is Craig G. They've put up a 10% discount code, CG 1776, and that code will not expire. Normally they would put up a code, it would last for a certain amount of time, and then the code would disappear. You can always use that code. You can pass that code out to anybody that you know. But again, remember the financial responsibility that comes with these. These are for people that desire to be part of the humanitarian effort.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for the people that are just looking for a quick money grab.
Because they're not going to get all of the money if they don't have a humanitarian project anyway.
No, there is what's called a default rate. And that default rate hasn't been published, but I ran some numbers on it. And I'm comfortable saying that default rate is less than the in-country rate. So if you just go and buy one of these and you show up and you don't have a humanitarian initiative trust completed, you're a default candidate. And some information I got last night took it to a completely different level, which is very similar to what I had told you about was part of the restriction that the Zimbabwe government was putting on the redemption. And that was, they're going to look at who you are and why you have it.
Which is why when you go and you purchase these at Banknote World, and I happen to know because I did purchase, I made a purchase myself uh, on Dave's recommendation. It's the TAP program, right? I don't remember what that acronym stands for. You can probably tell us, but it's basically a certification, and not only is there uh, that authentication, the authenticated note, but also there's a record that you're actually the one who purchased it, right? Because I remember I had made that mistake of clicking off that box that said you want to keep your tap anonymous, and Dave was like, "Oh no, don't do that." So maybe you could explain that to folks.
Sure. Let me talk about the TAP program really quick. Anybody that's familiar with sports cards and the process that you can pay for to have your cards graded. There's a whole nother level from a new company that just came in, which is actually more of like in my wheelhouse, which would be a forensic examination. They are certified to perform a forensic examination on every bill, whether it's a bill that they've acquired or a bill that you mail them. Now get this. If you have any suspicion about something that you've purchased, I put out the counterfeit guidebook on my Twitter page to show you all the ways that you can check to verify your bill. They sell a black light for $14 that has the minimum required black light wattage bulb so that safety features pop up. You can do that yourself. Or you can call this gentleman on the phone, and I've been told that he can discuss with you the ability to have it forensically examined so that you'll know instantly if that is a legitimate bill. I mean, if I had bought anything on eBay or I had gotten something, from a source that was questionable, I would be on the phone talking to him saying, Mr. Craig, this is what I bought. And what would it take for me to have those authenticated? And the reason why I do that is because I'd want to know before I walked in the door if I was holding something that was worth $4 billion or $40.
Yeah.
I didn't have all the air go out of my dream. See my point?
Yeah. Well, you had said at one point that the Asian elders had agreed that not only they're buying up back all the bonds, but they're even buying back all the counterfeits.
Yes, that they're buying back all the counterfeits because they all have to be taken off the market. There will not be a bill left in the marketplace.
Now, is part of that process what's happening with the arrest in Zimbabwe? Is it for counterfeiting?
Yes. Well, some of it's counterfeiting because they don't understand as an economy the provisions and safeguards that are taking place. They're more of a hand-to-hand economy where money just changes hands and no one's there trying to validate it. But by having to go through the bank, now it's being examined, it's being checked. The people are being checked. Who are you? Why do you have it? And that's what came out in the press release. Patriot said anybody that had more than 100,000 ZWL. Geez, 100,000 is nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but see, in their country, they don't have the 100 trillion. They don't have the 50 trillions because those were all bought back by the government back in 2015, 2016. They literally opened up a window of time for people to trade them in and then they were worthless after that. So I can't imagine in that economy people holding on to them.
Which is why so many people to this day believe that misnomer, the disinformation out there that they're not worth anything.
Right. Well, and this comes back to what I uncovered with regards to some of the information that was being put out there by some of these people without naming them. And that was misinformation and disinformation to the point where sting operations were still ongoing. They still had to lure the nefarious people in order to confiscate not only what they had, but also to confiscate them if they were wanted by the law. So don't let me forget to talk about the felons in respect to that. Um, two types of arrangements for purchasing the ZIM. Number one is through what's called an MSB, money service bank, or money service business, excuse me. I used the wrong term in a prior video. Money service business, MSB. They function in the legitimate currency, and they also can function in the novelty or the collectible currency. So these have been labeled as collectibles, novelty currency without a value. You know, they might be nice to hold because they're pretty. They're not worth anything. They're not being used in the currency system now. So that makes them a novelty or a collectible. Now, in the MSB world, it's very strict because it's run by the SEC. They oversee it. So they have the ability to come in and go after influencers that are being paid to recommend these things if things are not true, if the disclosures aren't absolutely correct. Banknote World is a collectible company. They don't pay for outside salespeople. They don't pay for recommendations. That's why Patriot and myself can say, we're not paid anything for providing you with this information. This is strictly a service that we're making available, not only because it benefits us, because we were able to acquire them, but we want you to know how you can benefit from it too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your benefit doesn't benefit us, but in the long term, it does because you
Benefits
benefit
all of us.
humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, this new economy is one that's based on love. Its language is love, and its foundation is love. And the return is love. And that's what this is all about. This is all for the kids. This is all for the next 200 years. Now, will we need currency for 200 years? Most likely not. We'll be lucky if we need it for another 25 years. And that brings up a point that we'll talk about when we talk about that on the slide. But let me talk about this real quick. If we know that this is the value on the in-country rate, and we know that the United States is being given a privilege of a significantly higher rate. And when I say high, I mean high, high, high. And that's all I can say. If you're
About the
sitting on
contract rate, the contract rate.
about the contract rate,
I mean,
exactly.
what you're looking at, folks, is the in-country rate, right?
Yes.
I mean, so it's
Mind you, maybe 1 in a million people has one of these in country. So now what's happened is they've been scouring the world. The criminals have been scouring the world trying to find them to redeem them in their own country. Well, the moment they try, they're being apprehended. Why? Because their actions are nefarious, because they weren't there to begin with. And they're not allowing the bills to come into the country. So they're smuggling them in. And they're just confiscating them. But they're still
a sting operation. Wow. That's yeah, it's pretty consistent with what we're seeing everywhere. Right.
Well, but see, here's the thing. It's now gone international. It's not just in Zimbabwe anymore.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why they're drying up. That's why they're pretty much gone.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any idea how scarce they actually are at this point? I mean, I don't know how you would really quantify that, but I mean,
well, I can tell you a little bit of what I know. There's some things I can't talk about, but let's put it this way. We know that there's 2 series for the 50 trillion. So that would mean that there's twice as many of the 50 trillion as there is the 100 trillion. because there's a double A series and a double B series. I'm sorry, double A, B series. So which one is really the gem? If I've got two printings of the 50 and have one printing of the 100, now you can go get two 50s for about $200 right now. But let's just use common sense. If two 50s are $200 and one 100 is $350, they're not the same price.
Nope.
See my point?
Mm-hmm.
So the redemption can't be the same price. I can't say, I bought two 50s instead of 100. The numbers don't match up for me. The redemption isn't the same for two 50s as it is for one 100.
Now, will the contract rates for the 50s, so is that kind of where you're going with that? They're going to be different. It's going to be lower, right?
Going to be lower. Yeah.
Significantly lower, would you say? Or because I think there's some folks are probably thinking to themselves, well, I'd love to be able to buy a 100, but I can't really swing it right now financially. So maybe I'll get a 50 or a couple of 50s. And they're,
this is what I'm going to say. I'm going to say, lean into the Lord. Give him praise and thanksgiving for having already provided you with the information you need. And put it down. And the Holy Spirit will come back to you and tell you exactly what to buy.
Fair enough.
And that way it resonates in your spirit. It came from the Lord. And it's exactly what was intended for your plan with him.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody can ever refute that. Because anything you do, there's no mistake. Let's put it that way. You can't make a mistake with God. So if you put your faith and trust in him, because he's the one that's provided all this, you can't make a mistake. It's foolproof.
Mm-hmm.
So don't try to overthink it.
Good point.
Sometimes I do because, I'm a tax accountant. I run the numbers. I start to look at analysis, and there are times when I just have to throw it out the window and go, Lord, what are we doing? This is your plan. I'm getting to participate in your plan. Because when I came home, I gained my royalty as your son. I could never have earned this in 100 lifetimes. Dad, what are we doing? I love the business you created for us, Dad. He wouldn't make it bad. See my point?
Of course. Yeah, I was just kind of thinking more, in terms of, speaking on behalf of what I imagine a lot of folks out there are thinking, because they're seeing this and they're thinking, wow, I'd really like to purchase as him. But I hear from folks all the time, how difficult it is. A lot of people are really, really struggling financially. That's why I asked that question, just to kind of provide a little bit of clarity. But to your point, I think that's ultimately the best approach, is just, as you always say, lean into the Lord, and he'll provide you.
I can make you this statement, Patriot. I guarantee you, if Patriot and I came to your house, we could go through your house and through your garage and through your storage unit, and we'd find about 50 or 20 different things that you could sell tomorrow. And you could discount them because there are people that want it. And you could pull together in a weekend enough to buy $100 trillion in bond. Guaranteed. Because this is what I know about people. They can always afford what they want to buy.
Mm.
I ran into a guy one time. He was a hunter. I was at his house. And he says, Dave, I don't have any money. I'm broke. I look up on the wall and there's 5 of the best deer rifles I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And I turned the subject and I said, oh, you're a deer hunter. And of course, here's all these head mounts, right? He says, yeah. I said, well, how many times do you go deer hunting every year? Oh, I do at least a couple 3-day trips and at least a 7-day trip. And I said, what's your favorite rifle up there? And he points to one, and I said, "Wow, would you take that down and you just show it to me? I don't want to hold it or anything." So he takes it down and he's showing me all the features and everything else. I said, "What's something like that worth?" He goes, "This is a $3,000 gun. I could sell it tomorrow for $3,000." I said, "Wow, who do you know that would want something like that? Must be hard." He goes, "No, my neighbor next door, he's been eyeing me, telling me if I ever want to sell it, he's gonna pay me cash for it." Ding ding.
Mm.
What was the next statement? So you're gonna give up selling this rifle that gets used 2 or 3 times a year to hold back your legacy?
Yeah.
He called his neighbor up, and his neighbor came over and brought the cash that night.
You're
You know what he told his neighbor? "I'm so glad you bought this rifle from me because I know you've always wanted it. And I'm going to now be able to make more money so I can buy 5 of them.
Mhm.
And now you can go hunting with me." So it turned into an even greater thing.
Yeah. Well, it's
And
also like, not even just in the context of money, but in the context of time. I remember my parents teaching me that lesson when I was really young, when I would say, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that. And they would say, people make time for what's important to them. If you
mhm.
really care about it, you'll make time for it. And
Well,
you
see,
never
and
really hear, you don't really hear people who have these, wonderful, successful lives, complaining about how they don't have time for things because they're the ones that are making the time, right?
right. Well, and seeing the bottom line to that story was he never invited his neighbor to go hunting. But the moment he bought his gun, he now was invited to go hunting.
Mm,
And that's what he always wanted to do with him. He really liked him.
mm,
And he knew by buying his gun, it would buy him a ticket to get to go hunting with him.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
that's what happened at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
he went on to, do very, very well in the business he was in, and remembers that story to this day. But it was a huge turning point. So I only bring that up because, we always have stuff. We always have stuff.
Hmm. Absolutely. So
And
let me ask you this. I mean, you had said something about wanting, you said, don't let me forget to talk about the felons. So
okay.
before I forget that, I don't know if you were done with your, with, what we had to talk about here at the Zim.
Yep.
But yeah, what can you tell us about?
Well, one of the pieces of information came out that said that felons were not going to be able to go through the redemption center. They weren't able to do currency exchanges or bond redemptions. So I drilled down on that, and that information was incorrect. It was put out there as part of the disinformation for the operations that were in force. And the way it's been described is if you have completed your time and you've paid your dues to society, meaning you served your term and everything went fine, you're not going to have any problems. You're going to be able to go to the redemption center and it is not going to become an issue. And they will have already known that. Believe me, they know everything about everybody, from parking tickets to you didn't return the book to the library. I mean, they know it all. They know if you're um, doing nefarious things with, how you buy and sell things. So what they were addressing was, again, we're looking backward, right? They were addressing the person that's the habitual felon. They just cycle in and out of jail.
Right.
They're in, they serve their time, they come out, and it's an open door for them. That's a person that's going to have great difficulty because they have a pattern of nefarious activities.
Mm,
It addresses people that are running from the law. Remember, we talked about how they use these announcements to lure them in to capture them.
right. Yeah.
Come over to the Holiday Inn on Highway 101 and Temple Street. We're here on Saturday, so you can pick up your 27-inch color TV,
Hmm.
1 to 2, and that's when they got them. So if you've served your time, and I know it was a big question because a lot of people sent me messages that said, I served my time. I came to the Lord as a result of realizing I was doing stuff I shouldn't have been doing. You're okay. You're fine.
Mhm.
That's what I wanted to express. So people weren't fearful that they weren't going to be able to go through.
Okay. Now, do you want me to pull up the other slide that you sent me? We can maybe work off of that a little bit.
Yeah, let's start there.
Okay. Let me just give me 1 second here. Let me get the right one. Dave sent me a bunch of stuff here. I'm trying to just keep track of everything. I think this is the one. No, that's the one we were just looking at. Stand by. I think we got it right here. Yeah, here we go. All right, here we go. What's going to happen? And I think this is information that folks really want to know. So, you see it?
Yes, I do.
All right, there we go. So, yeah, talk us through this, Dave.
Well, and Patriot and I talked about this before we came on air. And what I wanted to express is this. There's nothing more important for each and every one of us to be doing right now than making sure that, number one, we are conserving our energy. And by that, I mean, we're not just wasting our time in rote, clicking through videos, looking for information that agrees with our opinion. Okay. We've had more than enough time to do all that. You want to make sure that you're spending your time getting accurate, detailed information about what is presented right here. The Brunson case is not important. You can't affect it.
On that note, can you explain to me, well, not to me, but can you explain to folks what you shared with me about the Brunson case and the whole purpose of it and
Yeah. Yeah. The
what it was?
original purpose for the Brunson case, as I share with Patriot, was the fact that the House had, well, let's just say the cabal. The cabal had made it known that if they took the House, that they were going to remove the Supreme Court, or they were going to add enough justices so they would never lose a verdict again. So they would pack it with everybody on the left. So they never had to worry about the Supreme Court. Well, that wasn't the case before the election. So the Brunson case was their insurance to be able to shut down the Democratic Party, the left, the cabal, if they tried to come after the justices to take out the Supreme Court. So think of it, they're like Clint Eastwood, and they got the big gun, and they're keeping it under the cloak, and they know they got it. Well, they didn't win the House. And as a result, it wasn't necessary for them to bring it out. It wasn't necessary to get a verdict on it. Now, would it be nice to have it? Sure, it would. But it's only nice because we get to check the box. It actually does more harm than good. And I'm going to explain that. So I share with Patriot. Right now, if a verdict were to come out on that, the way we all suspect, and it would find that there was actions taken to turn the election, which they already have all the proof for, and it's already been
Failed to
presented.
do their constitutional duty.
Yes, they failed to do the constitutional duty. Then that would cause civil riot in the streets. And they don't want that. They don't want human life put in a position where it can be hurt. People lose their life. Because that goes backwards in what this is all about. So if you just use some common sense and you operate just like in Clue, do we need it or don't we need it? Do we want civil war? Do we not want civil war? The answer is we don't want civil war. Because without civil war, everything moves 10 times faster.
Mm-hmm.
The other point of that situation is the fact that it's already been made known that they were in incorrect standing when the case was presented. They had to be attorneys. They weren't lawyers when it was presented. And that's how the information came down. Remember, it was just a failsafe. They could look aside from the fact that they weren't lawyers if they needed to use the gun. But now that they don't need to use the gun, they have to look to the law, which is the higher precedent right now.
Mm.
So
So this
go
was
ahead.
a defensive measure.
Yes, it was entirely defensive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gotten to the point now where we know that a number of justices are no longer there. And it's come out that Justice Thomas has said, I'm the only one that needs to rule on it. Okay, if we're playing Clue, what does that tell us?
He is the court.
He is the court. Just what Patriot said. So has it really already been decided? Yes. Do we need to make that known to the public? No.
Gotcha. Yeah.
We can just move forward. But again, it keeps popping up in the narrative. Why? Because it gets people distracted. It pulls them back to that narrative and it takes their focus off of something else that's happening over on the other side.
That's right.
They've been rounding up people right and left. They pulled down another 13,000 people out of California, another 8,000 or 8,300 out of New York. LA and New York are the biggest problem areas. They may get a few extra days of disclosure when we go into the 13 days of disclosure, the first 10 plus the last 3. Why? Because there's more nefarious to take up. We talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
And the forces to be are amply ready. Hence some of the decodes. Tic tac. Tic tac. What do we know about tic tacs? And it's not TikTok. It's tic tac. San Diego, battle cruisers, jet planes. They're all over. That's what I was talking about when I was on the phone with my brother. And he's taking pictures and he's showing me how they're appearing in the sky over San Diego. And then out of the blue, he's telling me, wow, this big dark cloud just showed up out of nowhere. And then a lightning bolt hits 10 yards outside of his window in the backyard and blows up his controller for a sprinkler, breaks the pipe. It comes into the house and blows up his large screen TV external speakers.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of like, maybe, Chuck, we shouldn't be focused on him right now. Maybe we gave him a little too much attention, and that was their way of saying, back up.
Hmm.
It was just so weird. It just came out of the blue like that.
Interesting. Well, I mean, this kind of, but I think what we're talking about in so many ways right now, it's, and I want you to take us through this slide right here, just, and talk about all of the things you have enumerated and just kind of make whatever key points you want to make. But it keeps hitting me over and over and over again. It all comes back to unity. And what you were just saying about the Brunson case, right? It was there as a defensive measure. It was there, like you said, the gun under the cloak, the big gun, if they needed to pull it out in order to thwart this plan that they had to stack the judiciary. But they don't necessarily have to play that card. They don't want to play cards that they know are going to cause division. And they certainly, I mean, both sides, I think, use distraction to a certain degree in terms of, well, we know that they do. The White Hats use it for tactical reasons. But the thing about distraction is that it also leads to division. And I think that that's part of the game that's being played right now is, like you said, they want to distract people, but they don't want to activate. I think that was the way that you had put it. They don't want to activate people to start getting violent to create that chaos. That's a last resort. It's just like, if going back to 2016, if they couldn't have gotten Trump in, if they weren't able to prevent the election fraud, the theft of the election that Hillary was engaged in back then, or they couldn't get Trump to agree to run or whatever, that the plan ultimately was that there was going to be a hot military coup. They were going to go in there and they were basically just going to have to do it overtly. But that was really a last resort sort of a situation, because how much death, destruction, and chaos and suffering would that have caused? So they don't want to play these cards. They want us to be united. And it also really connects to what I was saying about even, these characters within our own movement who are trying to sow the seeds of division, because they know if they can distract, if they can divide, then it slows down the process massively. And that's a big part, I think, of what a lot of people are scratching their heads going, why is it taking so long? Why is it taking so long? And a lot of folks haven't even stopped to consider all of these nefarious actors on not just in our movement, but throughout the entire war, throughout all the different theaters of the war, all of these nefarious actors that are causing the division, that are inserting all of the disinformation, that are confusing. That, I mean, that's what this process has been about, smoking out these individuals, because they're the ones who are really holding, like that metaphor. I think, I don't remember if I talked about it before or after we hit the record button, but like that beach ball, they're the ones that are holding it under the water. And so, once you get rid of that, and that's why I'm really excited right now, because I think there's a lot of evidence to point in the direction that, the White Hats are really starting to make their move on these people. The chains are going to be even further removed, and humanity is just going to bust up through the surface of the water, in a sense. That's our ascension, that everything is just going to shoot in that direction. But that's what these agent provocateurs are doing, is they're trying to slow down the process of awakening through division.
Well, and again, that was their plan from the beginning, starting in 2000. It was a 30-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
And that plan got thwarted starting with the C word. It got thwarted with the B word, or the V word, got thwarted with the J word. So every place that they went, it ended for them. They're all bankrupt. They've had to turn over all their assets. All the players are gone. We're just seeing the crafting of doubles and clones and masks.
Mm-hmm. To tell
there are no principles left. And the few principles that are left, they already cut their deals to have a little more life in exchange for continuing to do what they're doing, or providing information that looks like they've gone to the other side. And who's a classic example of that? Jamie Dimon. That's not Jamie Dimon. That's the person playing Jamie Dimon.
Yeah.
Jamie Dimon, he went to the Lake of Fire in 2022.
Yeah, I mean, does anybody really think that the real Jamie Dimon suddenly just did this about face and is coming out and talking about how great Trump well, not great, but Trump is actually right about this, that, and the next thing, and saying that the MAGA people were right? I mean, the real Jamie Dimon.
Right.
So, folks,
having been running the most corrupt bank in the world.
That's right.
Shredding 40,000 or 40 million documents.
Yeah, this guy's evil to the
to
core.
avoid SEC. No. Again, this is all a play. It's all scripted. It's all what they want you to see. Because again, remember, they don't want you to engage. They want to keep you distracted. They already have enough people out there disseminating the truth. Some people have a little more than others. Some people don't have any. They're just enjoying making some money, getting video clicks. And that all goes away shortly. But the biggest distraction comes when The majority realized that what we had, we don't have anymore. We're not going to have a stock market. Banks are only going to be here for 2 to 3 years. Why? They're only here to help navigate the less technically savvy people figure out how to use their quantum phones and how to use their quantum laptops and give a little bit of comfort before they say to the bank, I don't need you anymore.
Yeah, it's a transition phase.
That's it. It's transition.
Just like the other ISO 222 tokens. We mentioned that as well.
That's right. And we talked about Swift. So and it's interesting how this perspective came about, because it came about through a discussion I had with my brother. And we were looking at these different things that have been happening out there. And we finally realized that if we looked at one, we could apply its case across the board. So we started out with Swift. Swift was the messaging system. It was the way for the Luciferian, deep state, cabal, Khazarian mafia, fiat fractionalized banking system to separate us from our money. And in doing so, we made nothing, and they were paid for the time that money was not in our account, as it was moving through the system to go into others' accounts. Now, most people probably don't know that money is calculated 9 digits to the right of the decimal point. Did you know that, Patriot? There was a gentleman.
Okay, sorry, I was muted there. No, I didn't know that.
There was a gentleman who learned about this years ago, and he wrote a program, and he hacked into a bank, and he had all of the digits that went beyond three places moved into, I don't know, 200 accounts in a bank. So the bank only got the first 3 digits, and then he had all the remaining digits up through 9 to the right going into up to 200 accounts. In 1 week, he siphoned off $40 million, and it was gone. Now, did the bank ever tell us that they earn 9 digits to the right, but only pay us for 2?
Certainly not.
Actually got paid? No, they didn't. So this was one of those things that they were doing to abuse the financial system. We're not having that going into the future. Banks are only there to provide that transition, like Patriot said, until everybody's good to go. So now you cross off the banks. The stock market, it's already crossed off. Why? Because it was nefarious to begin with. We're not going into this new quantum financial economy, God's economy, with the intention of trying to earn interest on somebody else. Its language is love, its foundation is love, and its product is love. Mm-hmm. So now we don't have a stock market, and that's going to be a rude awakening for people. We're not going to have brokerage firms because they're tied to the stock market. And all the brokerages lost their contracts for real-time data. So it's already taken place.
Yeah, we talked about that last time.
Mm-hmm. We know the retirement accounts are protected. So if you have stocks, bonds, whatever you have in a retirement account through a brokerage, you have gold, silver, precious metals, that's all protected 100%. It's being mirrored onto the quantum financial system, the QFS, that operates in the 5th dimension. It operates through Starlink. But there's a special account in the quantum financial system with your name on it. It's called a quantum access account. It says Patriot Underground on it. And your bank account information is on there. All of it. Your retirement accounts, all of it. If you had some stock over at Charles Schwab, none of it.
Yeah.
Because it's all going to be encapsulated when they shut it off. See, the Black Swan event isn't what is being portrayed as a black swan event. Black swan event has already been happening around you. And as I pointed out months and months and months ago, it was about getting rid of the internet. It was about cutting the cables so that it could never be used again. And that's already been taking place. And then here's the key, Patriot. In order to protect the banks, we don't crash the market, we just turn it off. Because if the stock market dropped 50% tomorrow, excuse me, there'd be a run on the
Run out
banks.
of windows
There'd be run on the banks.
and runs on the banks. Yeah, absolutely. Exactly
They couldn't close the doors fast enough. They couldn't unplug the ATM machines fast enough. But see, that's that chaotic element, which we don't want.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going to do something that's going to engage people to have to resort to something different than what we want. We want everybody to be calm. Do we want them? What's the word I want to use here? We really don't want them agitated, but we don't want them just passive. And I don't like the term awake. I would rather use the term alert. They're alert. You know, it's kind of like growing up in law enforcement family. I don't sit with my back to the door any place I go. My dad taught me that. So you got a view of what's going on. You can see what's coming in, what's going out, etc. So we're kind of taking that same approach here. We want to be alert to what is happening and what the final stages look like. But do we need to waste any energy on it? The answer is no. We need to make sure that we're prepared. Why? Because at the end of the day, if you're not prepared, you're SOL. There's no time to make it up. If your humanitarian initiative trust isn't done, if you haven't sorted your currency and your bonds by denomination and filled out the proper control sheets and you've got everything to walk out the door to the redemption center, you're really flirting with danger because you're not prepared. It's like saying, oh, you know, I got plenty of time to go to the grocery store. No, you don't. Do you want to be at Walmart with 3,000 people all trying to get food? I don't.
Well, it's just kind of like, it reminds me of the toilet paper, the great toilet paper shortage during COVID. Like who would have thought that it was going to become like the hottest commodity. I can remember back in those days, just like, calling up my parents and be like, oh, they have it at Target, or oh, they have it at Walmart, and running around trying to find toilet paper, something that you literally take for granted, and then in an instant.
And then you're buying boxes of it at the dollar store.
Yeah, and I've said before, I think that the whole COVID situation, amongst many other things, was also in so many ways a rehearsal.
I run
for those of us who know what's coming.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And also in some ways to at least partially prep the public for a major event, what Q told us was going to be a major scare event. But I know you probably, I mean, you're always the guy saying, listen, don't waste your energy, resist every stupid thought. So I'm curious about that, Dave. Like what's going to trigger in your estimation? I mean, it's speculation, of course, but you have a lot of contacts and information. Certainly, you've done a lot of research. What's going to trigger this blackout? The EBS. Because like you said, I mean, they want people to be alert. They want them paying attention. I think maybe even to a certain degree, they want people to be somewhat shocked, or at least they've accepted the fact that people are going to be shocked, but they don't want to push people too far. So what's the recipe? Like how do they do that? How do they have a big event that brings everything to the halt, that or into that pause phase that Trump has mentioned many times? I mean, what's your thought on that? Because I know
one scenario that has continued to pop up is the Brunson announcement. Why? Because it triggers an immediate lockdown. The reserves and the military are already in 300 of 350 cities, ready to go. They're just waiting to activate. So it's not like they're going to go into action. They're already in action. Now, what are they getting continual training on? How to take over the hospitals, how to take care of the sick, how to deal with emergencies. Why? Because doctors and nurses are all going to be sent home. If you're a doctor or nurse, you're not going to go to the hospital to work. They've trained the military. They've got people that specialize in medicine and are surgeons and can take care of emergencies. So don't think that you have this duty that you have to be at the hospital. No, your duty is to be at home with your family, keeping them safe and waiting to get the information as to what's going on and how we're all to proceed. They've already taken care of all that. Why do you think we don't see many law enforcement out? They're being trained. They're all being sworn in as marshals. The military being sworn in as marshals. Why? It's the highest form of the law. It trumps the military. I saw something the other day. They swore in 600,000 marshals. They're basically gonna set up everything, the roadblocks, and the different things to make sure that evil isn't getting out, nor is evil getting in.
So that's
We,
interesting. That's interesting because we were just talking about the Brunson cases being like that gun under the cloak that they don't necessarily want to pull out because it would cause exactly the chaos that you're describing. So you're thinking though that they might be waiting
Mhm.
that to be the trigger to actually make
Yeah.
that announcement and then have that be the basis because
Mhm.
people are probably will.
Oh, they're going to be outside their homes. They're going to be rioting. They're going to be, breaking windows. Now, when you see, we're already in martial law. We're not going into martial law. We're already in martial law. We've been under martial law since 2020.
2020, yeah.
Yeah, May of 2020. So it isn't something we have to activate. It's just the announcement that we're now enforcing it. And
Okay.
they will be out so fast, and they've been trained and they've been given permission to do certain things. So it isn't like they're just going to be, playing patty cake out there. No, people will be removed.
Mhm.
Period.
And during this same period, we can imagine that sleeper cells, I mean, the deep state's going to throw everything that they've got, right?
Yeah, but what they have is like the sixth grade elementary flag football team
Going
going
against,
against
yeah,
going
the
against
NFL.
the Seattle Seahawks.
Mm.
It's not even a match.
And this, by the way, is also going to be the period where all of these, what is it, something like 500,000 sealed indictments get served
Well,
over
they're
the
down to 450,000.
450. Okay.
Yeah, and it's active, and they're continuing to round them up. A lot of them. Remember we talked about. You asked the question: is this domestic or does this apply globally,
Yeah.
international?
Right. Hmm.
And I said it was international. It's international, and they've been enforcing those internationally. So again, the operations are still intact, and they're apprehending people every single day. I mean, there's never been so much activity in Arizona
Yeah.
than ever. So there's a lot of people that have to be rounded up. But what did I say happened when the residents through the Schumann residence kicked off? What did it do? It turned us all into beacons. So we're giving our location every single second of the day.
Hmm.
They know where everybody's at.
Yeah.
They don't
And
have to go.
it's also evidence that the white hats are controlling the flow of all the information because if people were just simply well, let's just put it this way, if it was business as usual and the military and these marshals were running around scooping people up and bringing them to justice, well, we probably would hear about that to some degree, right? There would probably be some element of that getting out into the public. And I think that's also, at least to me, it's an indicator that they're the ones who are ultimately in control of dispensing all the information at this point that we're receiving. That
Yep.
it's really not the cabal even though the optics appear that the cabal is still in control of mainstream media and government and all of these things. They're really in control of none of it.
Right.
And it's
Well,
all,
and one of the things I was going to say was, when we're focused on what's most important, it's not watching the national news. It's not watching Fox News. It's not watching MSN. It's not CNN. It's none of that. That's not important.
oh, that's for sure.
Why? Because when you go on vacation, does anything change? Did you cause anything to change? Because you weren't watching? Oh, nope, you didn't have your hat turned sideways. Oh boy, No, that stuff doesn't work.
Mm.
You're an observer. Choose to decide what you're going to spend your time observing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just mentioned that too for all the, the people, the skeptics out there who are thinking, oh, well, if all of these things are happening, how come we're not hearing about it and all that? It's like that, that same question that keeps coming up over and over and over again. Well, the reason is because the good guys are in control and they don't want you to hear about it. And I
Mm-hmm.
would even argue to a certain extent that even if they weren't, and even in these pockets that the deep state maybe still have a little bit of control, it's not in their interest to disclose this either.
They have no control anywhere.
Right. Well, I was just saying,
There's nowhere to go.
right, right. I agree
They
with
may
you. I
still
think,
cook dinner and they may still go out, but at the end of the day, they don't control anything. It's just what day do they get picked up or taken up?
mhm.
There's 60,000 was it MS-13 in a prison in Honduras? It's not like they're not rounding them up,
Mhm.
but they won't be sitting there much longer because remember, it's not about housing. And we've heard Pascal talk a lot about that now. He's
Mhm.
coming in confirming a lot of what I've already said. It's boom, boom, bye,
So they're just coming in and they're killing people,
taking them out,
taking them out.
taking them out, taking them up. Yeah. I mean, it's that end game is galactic and they're all ready for it. They're just waiting. And in the meantime, people are just disappearing. They're gone. So we don't have to worry about that. We just have to take care of ourselves and our
So a
family.
lot of these individuals you're saying they're not even facing tribunals. They're just being taken out. Now,
Well, think of their grand jury investigation as their tribunal.
okay.
Okay. They're found guilty. It's in the paperwork. Terminate. No amount of questioning or response is going to change that. That's why when they do have these tribunals, the ones they've already had through JAG, they're not asking them to prove their innocence. They're reading them the charges and delivering the outcome. And they're dumbfounded that anybody could even begin to do that. But see, they committed a crime that the military is in charge of.
Yeah, most people have no, and that's one of the things I really like about the information that Derek Johnson has put out because he's educated people on the difference amongst many other things, but the difference between military law and civilian law. They don't, the military doesn't play.
No, no, they don't. They don't operate the way they do in the civilian world.
That's right.
And because everything was handed over, and that was done before the election, by the way, if you didn't know that.
What was?
Trump handing over the governance to the military.
Oh, yes, I'd heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, they already knew what was coming,
Mhm.
and there was a point where they tried to impeach him, and they couldn't impeach him because technically he wasn't the president; he was now the commander in chief, and you can't impeach the commander in chief.
No.
And because we were already operating under the law war manual, it was kind of like it was just an exercise to put out into the narrative, the public space,
Hmm.
to give people something to um, Watch.
Mm-hmm.
But again, all that's winding down. It's winding down fast. And I don't know if you've been paying attention over the last couple weeks, but the Schumann resonance was off the chart. I mean, it was
Had a
hitting.
number of people in my Telegram chat posting about that, commenting on that. Yeah, I have seen that. Now, what can you tell us about that?
It was triggering 5D resonance. And to get into those types of vibrational levels, I mean, you're up in the, almost the 700-800 range, whereas most people operate under 200. So you really don't start to go anywhere until you get to that 4, 5, 600. And then things can move fast. But see, a lot of that's been the case because they took us off the solar calendar, the 13-month, 28-day calendar. And when the Babylonians took us off of that, they separated us from our cosmic balance, our balance with the cosmos. And then the Cabal was able to utilize that to bring in the MK Ultra programming and dumb us down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the good news is we're going back to that 13-month, 28-day calendar. And the resonance that comes back to us is completely restored in less than a year. So, imagine going, it's like the kid that, he graduates from junior high and he's 5'2", and he comes back over the summer and he goes into high school, and he's got his freshman year and he's now 6'3". And everybody's going, "Oh my gosh, what happened to you, dude?" It's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I just grew."
Yeah.
And then by the time he graduates from high school, he's now 7'2". But everybody remembers him when he was 5'2".
Mm.
That's the kind of growth and expansion we're going to have with our own consciousness.
Exponential.
Exponential, yes, because we're being restored back to the harmonic resonance. See, and that's what I was able to point out in my price discovery for XRP, for the price of gold. It all operates on that harmonic proportion. It's all in perfect balance and proportion.
Mm.
But you take it away, see, and they did that with the stock markets. They did that by converting a normal trading day, which would never end, right, to breaking it up every single day. So it had odd start times. We had the time difference changes. They could trade when they wanted to. We couldn't because we didn't qualify. It's kind of like somebody proposed something the other day, and I had to send them a message on it. And they said, "Do you think a short squeeze in the currency market or in the crypto market or the stock market would have a big effect?" And of course, they said it would. Well, I wrote them to educate them on what it even entails to become eligible to be a short seller. And the rules that were established were designed to not allow anybody but the ones they wanted in to qualify.
Mm-hmm.
I was a level 6 trader, which meant I could short the market. And it's different in the equity markets where it's all driven by how much capital you have. It's not about time.
Mm-hmm.
Time has no effect on being a short seller. It's about capital. Now, when you go in, and that works in the options market as well. But when you go into the futures world, there is no short selling. You just buy or sell. So I either sold the contract or I bought the contract. But where they figured out how to trip up everybody there was, unless you were with a firm that had unlimited capital, like the Goldmans and the JP Morgans and their trading desks, 15 minutes out of the day, they stopped the market. So they forced people to have to close their contracts because the margin requirement during the day was, say, $500 per contract. The moment they closed it, it went to let's just say 15,000.
Yeah.
One contract.
Mhm.
So they forced traders to have to take losses.
Yeah. One of the many ways that the
Oh,
stock market is
oh,
rigged.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But see, it was their playground, and that's where the Federal Reserve made all their money.
That's
Because
right.
remember what I told you their sign was from the Asian elders? It was infinity. So they never had to worry about keeping a contract open. Why? Because they had the black card. They could come in and come out as they wanted to. They could push the market as much as they wanted to.
Right.
And the futures market actually operates on an average. So the more contracts, excuse me, the more contracts you trade, you don't have a fixed price. You have an average. Nobody knows that.
Mhm.
And the market makes the other half of the average. So let's say it's a 3-point spread. They make 1.5 points, and then there's 1.5. Uh, then there's 3 points added onto the contract, and 1.5 of those points go to the exchange.
Mhm.
It's just highway robbery.
Absolutely.
That's how they kept everybody out.
Yep.
And that's how the Federal Reserve tried to make their money from 2020 onward, knowing that they just had a very, very short window. And I sat there and watched them while I was trading, and I'd never seen what I saw in that year and a half. And I figured that they made about $400 trillion in a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah, the swings were they were beyond algorithmic, and that's probably the best way I could describe it. But coming back to this,
Mm.
what's going to happen? We're going to have we're going to have the blackout, and all the blackout represents is the fact that they shut everything off. They shut off the internet. They shut off the computers. They shut off the ability to use your phone. They tell you to go home. And while you're going home, you're making that frantic mad dash to Walmart or the grocery store to stock up on groceries. And we've already talked about making sure that you have your little collapsible foldable cart, sucker cart. You've already got your cooler bags. You've got your regular bags. So you're fully self-contained when you walk in,
Mm.
because you're not going to have a cart when you get there, because there's not enough carts to service 3,000 people. And there's certainly not enough plastic bags when it comes to checkout. And you're not going to be one of the people that just walks out without paying for groceries. And you're going to have cash on hand so you can put in $20 bills and not expect any change.
Mm.
And you're going to be okay with that because you're prepared.
Now, are they going to have are they going to have military at
You
these
bet.
locations to
You bet.
prevent? Okay.
You bet. There's going to be a presence there to make sure there isn't, people shooting people over a bar of soap
Right.
or a bottle of vodka.
Oh yeah, the
Um,
liquor stores are probably going to get emptied out the quickest. That's my guess.
well, I don't know. I I imagine that when this happens, they're just going to bar the doors.
Mm.
They're not going to stay open. Think about it. You got too many people that are frantic.
Yeah.
You got bulls in the china shop.
Yeah.
There's going to be more breakage and damage than what you collect and goes out the door. And then you've got your poor employees there. They're not set up for self checkout.
Right.
And you certainly don't want people just coming in there and wheeling it out. So you got to lock it down.
Mm.
They may not even open on the day, which might be kind of interesting to keep an eye on.
Mm. Yeah.
Hmm, you know,
Yeah, because at this point in time, whatever it is that triggers, because I would imagine that there's going to be when the message goes out, is it going, well, let me ask you this, is it going to be in response to something that's happening that people can optically see, or is it just going to be get home and you've got X amount of hours to get home? And
well,
there's not going to be any explanation. Like, are people going to be the normies? Are they going to be able to connect the dots in terms of like what they think is happening, or is it just going to be like just get home as quick as you can, and we'll
well,
tell you when you get there?
I think you've got the two possible scenarios. You've got the announcement of a ruling coming down within 5 hours. See, that'd be a better way to handle it. excuse me, they come out and they announce that there's going to be a ruling in the next 5 hours on the Brunson case. So we're done with the wishy-washy we could. Now it's definite. And it goes out. You got 5 hours to get home. Get home. At 6 p.m., there'll be an announcement on the Brunson case. People are going to haul butt home. Why? Because they're anticipating in their mind civil unrest. So we can kind of play with that narrative without having to do it. Think about that.
You seem pretty confident that this could be that it's going to be the Brunson case, or are you just?
Well, it's the most it causes the most agitation because it would trigger the those that are still caught up with the MK Ultra programming and Stockholm syndrome, not wanting anything to change. So they're the resistors. They would enjoy the change, but in their mind, they're scared of the change because they don't know how it's going to change things. And am I still going to be able to go out to have the movies on Friday night? Am I still going to be able to go out to the bar? Am I still going to be able to go out on my dates? Am I going to get to do what my narcissistic nature wants to do? See, that's where the rub is. Those that are still operating in their sin nature, self-inflicted narcissism, because it's about them. No one's going to tell me what to do. So they're the most volatile and most reactive and most likely to go into action because they've already played the scenario out in their head and they want to go beat up the bully. Right? And the good guys are looked at as the bully.
Now, do you think they're going to come out and just say, well, we got a ruling on the Brunson case, or do you think they're going to frame it as saying that we've got a major ruling pertaining to the election? Because I mean, the normies probably don't even know, they wouldn't even know what the heck they're talking about, right?
Well, they just have to spin it that the Brunson case is the deciding factor on January 6th. And then they can spin it if it comes out this way or if it comes out that way. And then kind of hint as to where it could be leaning.
Okay. Gotcha.
You know how they do, the consensus right now is, 60% they find that it was not good what they did, and only 40% chance that things will just remain status quo. So you position it with enough odds to give people the idea, oh, shoot.
Something big
that happens, there's going to be melee in the streets.
I get you. Okay.
That's enough to clear the streets. And in my mind, I kind of like that scenario because it's more calming. We haven't triggered anything yet, but people would be getting ready. See my point?
Well, it's certainly better than the idea of the optics of a nuclear missile going off or something along those lines.
Yeah, no, they've taken care of all that. Anything related to nuclear has already been neutralized. So we don't have to worry about that at all. Matter of fact, there's even Starlink satellites that are equipped for that. And most of those are equipped for something coming from the other way. No, we're all covered on that. It's just the Patty Hearsts that we have to contend with.
Okay.
Okay. And that might be dating
a little bit
us, but I can't imagine what the other might be. But there are people that are just waiting to pop off, and they know it. So you kind of give them a time and let them know when it's coming, so they think they're going to get to pop off. And by that time, you got everybody home. They're prepared. They're secure in their home. And they know if anybody comes walking through my door, what I'm doing. And they're just hunkered in. Now, if these people want to go out and be in the streets, well, they're all ready for them. But none of us are in there.
So this is just another example of the sting. It's kind of like what you described, showing up at the, at the hotel to pick up your 27-inch TV. It's kind of like, it's dangling that.
Gosh, I hope we didn't expose the whole plan.
Well, nothing can stop it anyway.
No, no, exactly. Exactly. So I'm joking on that. But, that's a very, very heavily weighted possibility with that. Now, if we go and look at another scenario, what carries the same gravity or the same weight? Because we're not going to put people in harm's way. We can give them just enough of a nudge. It's like here in Phoenix. Oh, in 3 hours, a haboob is coming through, and we're going to have a total blackout for the next 100 miles. Get home.
Mhm.
The freeways are empty. Everybody hauls butt home.
That's the idea, to get everybody home without violence.
Exactly. And then you just wait for it to come by. And then you see all the dust in the storm, and then you clean up afterwards.
Yep.
So
Okay.
that's a
I
much
like.
safe that's a much safer and probably more probable outcome. And
Mm.
they keep bringing it back. See, that's the thing. You know, it's the what was one of the villains in Clue? The butler. It was the butler in the pantry with the candlestick.
Right.
Well, they just keep focusing on the candlestick. It keeps coming up. It keeps coming up. It goes away for 3 or 4 months, and then they bring the candlestick back up. It's a clue. It's a clue.
Mhm.
It's not a stock market crash. They've already said that. It's not going to be a stock market crash. Just going to turn it off.
Yeah. And we're not having civil war.
We're not having civil war.
It's not
No,
going to happen.
no. But everybody is going to be made aware. You step outside your house and you're on the street,
We're in some trouble.
you're in trouble. You're going to be collected. And, kind of like what I was told, there's no guarantee you're going home.
Yep. Now,
Is it
people have
fair?
to appreciate the fact that this is a military situation we're dealing with here. We're not dealing with the normal, I can do what I want. I have, my rights and all of these things. I mean, this is a continuity of government sting operation that's going on that the military is executing. This is not business as usual. You can't just simply go out there and defy and think that there aren't going to be consequences. And I think in so many ways too, that's what one of the things that Pascal has been warning folks about.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
And, kind of like I alluded to before, you may think you're fine and protected because, you're popping off about our commander in chief, or you're popping off about people that are connected to these ops. But what you fail to understand, and the illusion that you've bought into, is the fact that there is a process in order for these operations to be successful. So you buy into the narrative that is 180 degrees opposite of what you think it is.
Mm.
If you want to get into those inner depths of those organizations, you have to be made a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't walk in and say, I'm such and such, hand over everything. Right. No, you have to look like you're the baddest person in the world, and you just got kicked out of what you were doing because they found out you were bad.
Mm-hmm.
Now it takes a little time to get tested before they welcome you in and start sharing secrets with you. But you have to play that bad guy. Now, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter how many people hate you. It doesn't matter what persona they put on you. Whether it's a pedophile, child molester, rapist. Well, we all hate those things, and they're not going in. But that's the character you've had to play. So again, it's all a movie. It's all staged.
Well,
These are
the other aspect of it too is that, there's a difference, I think, between, an average person out there, questioning, is this person good? Is that person bad? And this and that, and to be honest with you, I've done the same thing along the course of the way of my journey, but there's a huge difference between that exploratory process and actually knowing exactly what you're doing and functioning as a saboteur in the movement, doing it in a premeditated way to deceive people. And that is, I think, what we're talking about here. That's what's unforgivable.
Well, see, that's that Stockholm syndrome. You know that change needs to happen. But because you've been held captive for so long, you've been abused, you have trauma, you're most likely to be caught up in it, defending it, not resisting it. So you end up becoming one of the people that gets used
Yeah,
to attack the good.
that's right.
And
Right.
you think you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, they're preying on weak-minded people, quite frankly, but they're also preying on people who are confused and desperate and scared and frustrated and all of these things. They're deliberately manipulating these people,
Mm-hmm.
playing with lives, and that's a it's a very dangerous game to be playing. And the reality is, it's not a game. That was really Pascal's whole message: is you think you're playing a game. This is not a game, and
Right.
people are going to find that out really quickly.
Yeah.
Matter of
And
fact, I think
consequences are
already are.
terminal. They're terminal.
Yep. Yep. Treason doesn't pay well in the end.
No, it doesn't. No, it
And these
doesn't.
people who know what they're doing, that's exactly what they're doing,
That's right.
exactly what they're committing.
I mean, it's like taking, an innocent person and convincing them to strap a bomb to their body
Yeah, right.
and go and do this in the name of such and such.
And
Do they
what's so
really?
disgusting about it is they come in they cloak it in righteousness.
Mhm.
They cloak it in, oh, we're doing the right thing for humanity. We're trying to expose all the bad people and all this. That's what really, quite frankly, I know I'm not supposed to pick up any fences, Dave, but it's hard when I see that type of stuff going on.
Well, and
I don't like it when people get manipulated, when innocent people.
no, no, we don't like that at all. We don't
Really
agree
angers
with that. But I think the saving grace in all of that is that we can have grace for them ourselves. We're not judging them. We're not taking the position that we're the ones that are trying them. We can be in a position to know that they've done wrong. Everybody has a choice. They made the wrong choice. They have to account for that.
Mhm.
But we're not the judge and jury. Those laws and rules were already
Oh.
established.
Mhm.
And what we know for ourselves is we don't go there.
Yeah.
We're not here, like I said, we're not here to form opinions. We're here to extract as much information as we can in order to make a qualified decision. But we don't judge right and wrong. There are people put in place to do that. We just need to make sure we're not doing wrong.
Mm.
So we're not picking up offense against somebody, but it's okay that we don't agree with what they've done.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with a little bit of righteous anger.
Right. Exactly.
I really,
Exactly.
but yeah, your point's well taken.
Well,
Absolutely.
and we've all been duped. We've all found ourselves in a situation going, oh man, did I just get used again?
Yeah.
And there's something about, people that do that to other people that really makes them 100 times worse because they know what they're doing.
That's exactly my point. That's
And
exactly my point. If you know what you're doing and you're actually cognitively aware, you're fully aware of what it is that you're doing, the evil that you're committing. Well, I think that it speaks for itself. That's what evil is.
right.
That's what evil, there's a difference. Like you talk about our sin nature and all of these things, and all of us have sinned. All of us have fallen short, but that doesn't make us evil. And that's the difference.
Well, we didn't come into this world as sin because God doesn't create sin. And he knew and he made us aware that we were coming into a sin condition.
That's right.
And there was never any doubt that we weren't going to taste it. We weren't going to partake of it. The difference is we had no awareness of that fact.
Hmm.
We couldn't know. But we had to come to the position in our own situation where we were so sick and tired of it. Like the prodigal son living out of the pig pen. He says, I can go home and be treated better, even having screwed up. I may be doing all the chores the rest of my life. I may be eating scraps at home, but I'm not going to be living in the pig pen with pigs.
That's right.
And then what happens when he gets home? The dad welcomes him with open arms, puts the finest linen and coat on him, gives him the signet ring with the full authority of the family name, slaughters the fatted calf, has the huge celebration, and then has to chastise the other brother or son because he's coming against his brother who's just come home. And he
Hmm.
doesn't see the importance of him coming home versus what he supposedly didn't get, which was always available.
That's right.
So
It was a celebration of God's victory.
exactly. And that's what he's after. So I think we're good on the Black Swan event.
Hmm.
I think that the highest likelihood is what we talked about. There's nothing else we talked about Israel. We talked about um, something happening there. Well, what have already happened? You
Do
don't go on hiatus and, drop out and nothing happens.
you think a lot of that stuff that we're seeing geopolitically in Israel and Ukraine, all these other places, is just theater?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
because that's really, more and more I'm leaning in that direction. Yes,
Yeah.
we know there's kinetic action and we know the reasons that the kinetic action has to happen,
Mhm.
but it's nothing like what it's being portrayed.
Right. Well, remember we were talking about Taiwan,
Yeah.
uh, on the last show or the one before that, and you're talking about China,
Mhm.
coming in.
Yep. Yep.
I talked about how they're coming in to clean up uh, the tunnels and some of the other nefarious stuff in Taiwan, and they want to help them rebuild. And there's no threat of war. I've come to learn that that threat of war was coming from the CCP, and that there was actually a situation where the CCP had launched fighters against Taiwan, and with the US, they wiped them clean. So the Taiwanese jet fighters, along with the US jet fighters, just cleared the table with them. So
And
they were
when is this?
um I'm there wasn't a time put on it. So in the narrative, I'm gonna say probably, 6 months or more.
Hmm.
But it was an air battle and it was ended pretty quickly. They didn't have near the resources to even do anything with that. But there's been other space battles too that have been fought, and those have been handled readily with the alliance or through the alliance.
Hmm.
So, with these understandings, it just kind of brings everything into perspective that, when God's in charge, we don't have to worry about anything. We really don't. And if we can just get back to focusing on the family, focusing on the father, getting ourselves prepared, knowing what needs to be done, and just leave all the distractions and everything else. It's like my wife and I, we've enjoyed watching all the reruns for all the major shows. So we're like season 27 of the Amazing Race, and we're watching all this stuff happen, and we're going, oh, what year was that, and what was going on, and everything else, and seeing how all that goes. Because at the end of the day, what really matters? It's love. That's what we're gonna take into the new economy.
Hmm.
Not take. I mean, it's like this. It's really funny. The SEC is lit up with everything that's going on. Now they're going back after Tether. After we talked about Tether being the bad bank, and we talked about Operation Sandman, and how the Lord revealed that all of the 2.1 trillion that all the BRICS countries were unloading back on the United States, it was going into Tether.
Hmm.
Well, now the SEC is investigating Tether. Tether owns 15% of Bitcoin. All they're doing is painting the sky.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's ready when it goes, and they just turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
It just goes goodbye. So they're giving us the clues, and I wanted to kind of circle back around. I kind of want to leave the Nasara Jasara for last.
Okay. All right.
We kind of talked
Do
about
you mind if we pause really quick? I'm just going to pause just really quickly so that let me come out here for one moment. I'm just going to pause the recording. I'll be right back. All right, we're back. We had to take a quick little break there, but let me pull up that slide again and we'll just pick up right where we left off. And stand by 1 second here. I had it and then it went. No, that's the Zig one. Okay, here we go. Let me pull it right back up. I apologize, folks. Here we go. All right, we back in business?
Yes, we are. We're back
All
in
right.
business.
All right, go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is I'd like to save the Nasara portion for last. We've talked about the majority of that, so that's kind of the end process to
Sure.
everything that's going on.
Mhm.
But what, again, I keep coming back to what's most important, and we're going to follow our clue game. And we talked about the stock market. We talked about brokerages. We talked about banks. Here's the most recent revelation, and that has to do with the ISO 222 compliant tokens. We have XRP, which is not a token. It's Snow White. And then we have the other tokens, the seven dwarfs, XLM, XTC, etc. So here's the revelation. And this, like I said, came about talking with my brother. Where is the value in those coins in the future? In our game of Clue. Has anybody been paid any money?
There really is none. That's my feeling.
Yeah, nobody's been paid a penny. Why would anybody think that they're going to be paid a penny for these? And Brad Garlinghouse has already come out and said, when this all kicks off, we're not going to have all of these crypto tokens, 27,000 plus gone. Why? Because they don't service the transition. And what's the transition? Transition is going from the Luciferian deep state cabal, Khazarian mafia, fiat fractionalized banking system, which is now terminated as of April 5th. And we're moving into God's quantum economy. It's exactly the same as when we look at the banks, when we look at the SWIFT system. These tokens are going to be used in the third dimension, running around doing the work. The seven
During the
dwarfs.
transition period,
We're in the transition period.
which is probably about 3 years or so, would you say?
Yeah, which is probably about 3 years. I would imagine at the most.
Okay.
You know, how many years did it take us to get into the internet? 10, if that.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be 10 times faster. 3 years.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
The cabal was selling 3 to 5 years. So they saw everything in their plan, which had us all gone by 2025. They were going to be done with their transition by 2028. And then they were skating into looking back over everything that they had created going into 2030.
Mm-hmm.
So if we kind of use that same timeline, by 2027, they're not needed anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And here, this was the big reveal. When we go over and they turn everything off, when they turn everything back on, we go on to free energy through Tesla. Right now, the QFS is operating on free energy. The XRPL is operating on free energy inside Cheyenne Mountain. And this was a discussion I had with somebody from the Alliance. Well, wait a minute. We can't be burning XRP at these transaction rates of 100 quadrillion a second. There won't be any more XRP left. He figured it would all be gone in a minute and 37 seconds. So I posed the question, because I had to be very careful how I structured my questions because of NDAs. I said, well, I remember David Schwartz made a comment one time. And see, and this is where the system breaks down. If you can't remember what was said, you can't tell the future.
And you're easy to manipulate.
Right. So that's why the Bible's written, even though we're missing 711 books. But those were all retrieved from the Vatican and they're being prepared for publication, so we all get a copy. But if we don't understand that, we can't move forward. Okay. So with that understanding, when we look back and we go, wait a minute, why didn't that happen? Things don't happen because we're not prepared for the things that are going to happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We can't see what we don't expect to see. Kind of like when I brought up the $100 bill that Rosie Rios created in 2009. It was viewed in 2010 and went public in 2013. It was the visual roadmap of going from Luciferian deep state cabal, Khazarian mafia, fractionalized fiat currency system on the left-hand side of the bill, past the blue line, which took us into the new QFS system. Okay.
Yep. I remember that slide. Beautiful slide.
So now if we can understand that everything we're coming into is free, we're going to have free healthcare. We're not going to need big pharma anymore. There's going to be a drastic reduction in insurance. We're going to see a change in real estate. There probably isn't going to be more. There won't be mortgages anymore. Why? Because you're just going to pay it off.
Yep.
You got $100 million in the bank. Are you going to take out a loan on a $2 million home?
No, of course not.
No.
Mortgage means death pledge anyway.
Yeah. And why would you do that when there's no interest to be charged? See, when all of this first started to come out, I remember telling Jimmy Valley, Jimmy, there isn't going to be any interest paid. We're going back to a biblical financial system. It's now being confirmed. We're not earning a penny on our money sitting in our quantum access account on the quantum financial system. And I just remembered I wanted to say something about that. Stay away from all the scammers trying to tell you you need to create a QFS account. You do not. There's nothing you need to do right now other than prepare for what's coming here. Getting your groceries, getting your humanitarian initiative trust completed, doing those things. All of the money is already sitting on the quantum financial system for you in a separate account called a quantum access account in your name. There's nothing you need to do. But the only thing you need to do is to get anything you have in a brokerage account that is in a non-retirement account removed and put into your bank account as cash. because then it goes onto the quantum financial system into your quantum access account in your name. And that's back to 100%. But if you leave your stocks, your bonds, your mutual funds, you leave anything in that brokerage account, when they turn it all off because it's not turning back on. See, and now they're starting to use really, really soft language, such as, well, when it does get turned off or shut off, they'll decide if it's necessary to create markets again. Let me just cut to the chase. There aren't going to be any more markets because that's not how we're operating. We're going to be active with our money. Why? Because we're focused on humanity. We're not focused on what we need because all of our needs are already met.
Right.
We're not going to be earning interest on each other.
That's right.
Our return is going to be love, and you can't put a price tag on that.
Amen. Beautiful.
And as we're using our humanitarian projects and we're seeding into other projects and people are seeding into our projects, it just continues to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And what happens? People start looking to sort out the projects to participate in because they're producing the greatest harvest of love. And I can imagine that word getting out, and it's just going to be mind-blowing. And people are going to be coming out of the woodworks going, I want to participate in that program. How do I partner up? How do I partner up? So we have to be in the right mindset, because this is what I want. Well, this is the other point I want to make is if the banks aren't going to charge fees, the banks can't pay interest. How do you expect to get paid anything for XLM when there's no market? It's still going to do what it needs to do in that interim. That bank is still going to do what it needs to do in that interim. But at some point, that bank isn't necessary anymore.
Mm-hmm.
At a point, XLM isn't necessary anymore. IOTA, HBAR, they're not necessary anymore. Why? Because we all know how to use it, and everything goes right to the QFS through XRP, through Starlink. We don't need anything else.
Yep.
There's no return. And when I brought that to my brother's attention, he went, oh my gosh, I never thought about it that way. It's like he had ingrained in his mind, they had to compensate him some way. I said, Chuck, there's no buyback for any of those. Isn't it interesting that still right now, XRP is the only one that's been identified as not being a security? Because it's not. It's a key.
Mm-hmm.
That means everything else is. And that's what the SEC is coming back with. Oh, that's a security. Oh, that's a security. Oh, that's a security. To the point where they're now going after companies and saying, well, you know what? You had staking. You're a security. And isn't it funny that this is what all of the talking heads are talking about they're going to do? And how they're planning their financial plans? Oh, I'm going to keep my XRP and I'm going to stake it and I'm going to earn this. And then I'm going to take this one. I'm going to stake it over here. Staking is almost the term is going to go by the wayside faster than Sony Walkman when Apple introduced the iPod. You're going to go, what was that? Staking? Is that like when lions, you're in Africa and they're trying to sneak up on you when you're on safari?
Yeah, becomes an obsolete concept very quickly.
Becomes obsolete, just like you said, so quickly that people don't even recognize what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But there's going to be a lot of people that are going to feel the pain. And this makes sense. Think of it this way. Let's go back to our clue board. Why would we get rid of 99.9% of digital assets, or what we know as crypto, in the crypt? Because it's a security. And we don't have a securities market anymore, do we, Patriot?
There you go. Boom.
Boom.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Well, let me ask you this, Dave. We've been going now for probably, I don't know, I don't have a timer, but I think we're well over 2 hours. So I was going to see if maybe you wanted me to pull up the other link that you sent me to the Redemption Center guide. You want me to pull that up or
Oh, yeah, we can cover it really quick.
okay. All right. Let me go ahead
It's
and
pretty self-contained.
yeah, why don't we do that? And I think I got it right here. And by the way, folks, with Dave's permission, I'm going to go ahead and post this in the description, if that's okay with you, Dave, so that everybody can have access to it. Because after all of my interviews with you, I continually get questions as to, where can I find the Redemption Center protocols and where can I find Dave's templates and on and on. And I keep telling everybody it's on his Twitter, XRPLion1. But some folks still have a difficult time. So I'm going to put this link in the description so everybody can see. So
Perfect.
want me to, I mean, it's 41 pages. We're not going to go through the whole thing. You want me?
No, I would let's just do this. Let me just talk about what it is. Excuse me. Oh man, indigestion a little bit. It just this tells me something. Well, not something, but it's here. What we're about ready to walk into. When I start getting indigestion like this, oh boy, Holy Spirit's moving. Holy Spirit's moving, and it's been really bad the last 2 weeks. And this is when a lot of the real understanding of truth is happening.
It's funny you mentioned that because I oftentimes feel like when I'm recording, I get a little bit of that indigestion as well. I never thought
Mm.
about it that way, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, and it's because what's happening is because that geomagnetism is coming up through us and it hasn't been there before. It's kind of like being a little seasick.
Mm.
We're this, we're like this divining rod and it's all respiratory. So the more we talk about it, the more it activates. So every so often I just have to kind of take a break, but it's been really bad the last 2 weeks and like it's never before. So it tells me we're not just close, but we're like, I love you
Teetering on the edge,
on the precipice.
on the precipice. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And we're looking not down, but across because we're just going to step across. Other people, they're going to step off or step up. So no, what happened here is after I got the nod with regards to the revelation I'd received about the redemption centers, and again, they've tried to change the name of these things and you know try to push the narrative in other directions. And of course, God wasn't going to let them do any of that. So now they've come back to what it truly is and what's truly called. These redemption centers are where we go to claim, we'll just say our benefits, what is being restored back to us. And that includes everything going back all the way to Adam, what God had stored up through our lineage. And I always say I'm 14th generation American. My grandfather was Miles Standish, Mr. Pilgrim. So my heritage is deeply rooted in America. And that's probably why and I'm Irish on top of that. So I really believe in us as people. And with that being said, I felt it was important that everybody had a guide that they could look at without having to try to go back through one of the 4 videos I put together to get the highlights. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now this guide is 65 to 80% accurate. It can't be 100% accurate because there's procedures and steps that they don't want revealed and known. And that's for security reasons. These are going to be in non-bank buildings. Or let me put it this way. They are not in branch bank offices. And that's typically a ground floor office or facility, meaning it's not going to be in the consumer branch of Wells Fargo, of Bank of America. No. If they have anything to do with anything, They are going to be tied to Wells Fargo Private Wealth Management, which would never be on the first floor. It would be on upper floors. And that's where they currently manage the private wealth. And you and I would never be invited there because we didn't have the wealth or the resources that we're receiving now to qualify. So this just lays out all the steps, what we expect to happen at each one of the stations. There's 9 stations. But
I'll
the
just kind of
highlight,
through this while you're talking here, so folks can see you.
Yep. And again, you can study this to your heart content. Just become familiar with it so you have awareness. See this, stop. Would you mind stopping right there? After doing 4 videos on this and having hundreds and hundreds of comments, my great friend Barry and I sat down and he went through every single comment on every video that I did.
Oh, God bless him.
Yes, yes, believe me. He's the one that introduced me to you because he was watching your channel. He's been there, gosh, going on 8 years. So he had 5 years on me when I came to Twitter. But he was already, watching Gene and you and a couple of others. Some of the others have already been left because their content didn't stay true, became irrelevant. Your content stayed true. You stayed true. And that's how he came to suggest that I reach out to you to get connected. Some people we weren't able to get connected with for whatever reason.
I'd like to meet him someday.
Oh, you will. You will. Believe me. So what happened is we came up with the top 5 comments that everybody was asking. And it's kind of like with the XRP buyback. There was 2 questions everybody wanted to know. What's the date and how much is it?
Right.
All the information has been put out there on how much it is. When you go to the Redemption Center, you're going to be able to pick the price that you want for your XRP. That's what the Lord said. Everybody will pick their own price. So you can be happy about that. You can be sad about it. Just get over it. It is what it is. There's no wrong answer. Because why? He's already put it in your heart. So it's coming from you. And that's important in the process. So what we did is we said, okay, how do you prepare? How do you handle special situations? I've had situations come up where they say, I have a child that has Down syndrome. How does that get handled? I have a parent that's elderly and there's no way they're going to understand all this. Can I go with them? Who will go to the Redemption Center? When is this all going to happen? What do we do in the interim? It's like the question about the buyback for XRP. When is it going to happen? And it kept coming up and coming up and coming up. And one day I just said, Lord, why is everybody so fixated on when it's going to happen? And what he said to me was so tender and full of grace. He said, Dave, they want to know when they have to leave their sin nature lifestyle. And it just hit me, Patriot. They want to know, how long can I continue to play in the devil's playground? And I'm not judging. Before I have to put it down and pick up Christ, Jesus, so I can return home to my papa. It just made all the sense in the world. And I can tell if a person's been following or just came onto the scene, because that's the first question that all the new people ask. When's it going to happen? And they're usually between 18 and 25. Now, I learned from my grandson that they don't want to do the work. They just want the answer, the result.
Instant gratification.
Right. They don't want to do the research. They don't want to do the homework. They're the ones that won't go and watch the videos. I don't want to watch the video. Just tell me what's going to happen.
Yep.
Sorry, it doesn't work that way. You got to put in the time just like everybody else here. Thank goodness you found our channel. At least you're not going to wander getting information that isn't going to lead you to an informed decision, whatever it is. So again, it was trying to get people ready for what's going to happen. So you can continue from there, please.
Sure. Yeah. Just kind of scrolling through to give folks an idea. I mean, not to, I'll pause whenever you want me to, but just so everybody can see.
Okay, let's go back up a little bit to question 1 real quick. Up one more. Okay, right there. Okay. How do we prepare? Number 1, get your humanitarian trust done. I mean, done. Don't have it so, all you need to do is get the folder. No, these folders are hard to find. It's a specific type of folder. It's a 3-hole punch portfolio folder. They sell them at Staples individually. They come in 4 different colors: red, blue, black, and green. Pick the color you like. And has a clear plastic top so you can see through it. And that's what they requested. That's what they requested. That's not coming from me. That wasn't my choice. So don't bind it in a notebook. Okay? They want this stuff to be able to be taken out, photocopied, put into a file, put back together, and maybe handed to somebody else to do something with. So don't get it permabound. You can't photocopy that stuff. That's why they're asking for it to be in that 3-hole punch where the little tabs bend over. It's the old high school report cover. That's what you use. Complete your currency and Zim bond summary sheets.
Which are in this document, right?
The old ones are in this document. There's new ones that are actually posted on the Twitter page, but they're easy to find. Super easy.
Okay.
Just go to my profile and scroll down. You'll see them.
Folks have to have their HITs notarized, right?
Yes, they do. And the reason why we're suggesting that is it shows that you're serious about this as a business. See, they're looking for people that can't follow directions. So the first thing they do is they start changing the format. They start changing the pictures. They start changing the text. And that's a disqualifier. That's basically raising your hand saying, teacher, I can't follow instructions. I'm going to do it how I want to do it. I don't care what your instructions are. Okay, fine. Then you don't get anything. Think of it that way. The better you can follow instructions exactly, it skates right through. Why? Because it's already been approved. That format's already been approved. Those pictures have already been approved. That layout has already been approved. Those colors have already been approved. So don't think that your color scheme is going to affect it in any way. No, it's just going to disqualify you. And they're looking for procrastinators, people that wait till the last minute. Same thing with the summary sheets. Get them done, because that's the first thing you're going to show when you get there. Law enforcement is going to ask you for your ID. They're going to qualify you based upon identity. So they're going to ask you if you have any currencies or bonds to exchange. That's federal notes. That's our current Federal Reserve currency. Don't bring more than $5,000, or most likely it isn't going to go into the system. They'll just take it because it's worthless anyway. And then you're going to want to work with making sure that you've got everything sorted. I did a whole presentation on a new way to present it. And there are these really cool color-coded clear zipper poly envelopes. And I did a beautiful thumbnail on that, and I explained that. It's not required, but it just looks really professional. So you've got your currencies and your bonds all separated by color, by country. And then there's little tiny zip envelopes that will hold your Zim. And even to the point where I got home with my envelope, Patriot, and I went to put my TAP $100 trillion Zim bond into it, and it was too tall. And I went, oh my gosh. And the Lord said, just reshape the plastic envelope. So I pushed out the bottom because it's kind of an accordion. And I did a post on that. And you can push down the bottom and push out the corners. And it drops right in there and it zips closed beautifully. So it's contained because then it's clipped. We don't take them out of the original casing. If they want to do it, they can do it there, but we don't do it. We don't take it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's an example of putting a Post-it on there or a sticky note, and you're labeling on the outside what you have behind the paper clip, and then you have that already summarized on your summary sheet. So it just makes it super, super easy, and you get through the whole process, and they go, wow, this person knows what's going on. Because at the end of the day, if you don't say the right things, and this is what's so important, and you're probably going to want to go back over this a couple times, is you have to make sure you use the correct words and that you follow the script. Because they're keying on certain terms that you must say in order for them to voluntarily provide you with the rates that are associated with those terms. And I'll give you an example. If they say, what are you here to do? Oh, I'm here to trade in my Zim bond. Wrong answer. You just told them you have no idea about the Zim bond and what's taking place. First off, you're not trading anything. You're redeeming your Zim bond, and you have to refer to it by its country code. I'm here to redeem $100 trillion ZWL Zimbabwe bond. And then you can hear the claps in the background. Yeah. Because you just spoke their language. There's a language that they speak. And if you don't speak that language, they're not required to tell you anything. So you're letting them know that you're educated. And because you're letting them know you're educated, when you make the next statement to them and you ask them for the rate, and they tell you the rate, and you write it down on your paper, then you reply, thank you for providing me with the rate. I would like the higher of the special or contract rate. And folks, you have to memorize that. You have to say that so many times. It's like that poor person at McDonald's when that car pulls up. They say the same thing every single time. And you have to be able to regurgitate that response or that statement to them. So that tells them, oh, they know there's a higher rate, a special rate, or a contract rate. And now they have to tell you what that rate is. If you came in and said, hey, what's your best rate? You fail again. 2 strikes. You're going to end up with the default rate. Because then all of a sudden you're going to panic and go, well, wait a minute. I was told that there's a higher rate. There's like the special or contract rate. And then they're just going to look at you like, so what am I supposed to do? At that point, they're just going to give you the rate they want to give you. And they're not deceiving you. But see, you're not qualified at that point to carry on an informed conversation with them. And that's why I spent all this time. When I realized that there were ways that they didn't have to answer so that people could get the maximum, See, this isn't wealth, these are resources. It's all coming from God to use in humanitarian projects. I didn't want anybody walking out of there not having done their absolute 100% best, not for themselves, but for humanity. And there's a big difference there.
And the other thing to sort of insert into the conversation here is like what Dave is describing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but what you're describing is the redemption center protocols for the people who hold foreign currencies, or the people who hold the ZIMs and the dongs and the deniers. We're a very, very small percentage of the population of the people who are going into the redemption center. So it's not as if, I mean, I guess a question to you, Dave, would be, yes, they're going to be very, the way you're describing it, very strict, very particular about what they're looking for, the diction, the word choice, everything that the way that you present yourself, all of these things that you're talking about.
Right.
But these same standards aren't going to necessarily apply to grandma who has no idea what's going on, or all the normies out there who are, just completely shell shocked and they're just kind of being led through this process. What Dave is describing is the standard for the individuals who are going to be the leaders of the new world. And I think that that's something that needs to be emphasized here, because I see a lot of folks comment, oh yeah, they're just going to trick everyone. And oh yeah, if we say the wrong thing, no one's going to get everything or anything, or that's not what Dave is describing here. He's describing a very specific set of protocols that are expected of individuals who are going to be given billions and billions and billions of dollars to be able to run humanitarian projects to build the future of this world. So it's not like we're just saying that this same standard is going to be applied to everybody, that if nobody has any clue when they walk into the redemption center. He's talking to the people who are listening to this, who are watching his videos, who are ultimately the ones who have been given this foreknowledge. So yes, there's a different standard that applies to us as opposed to the general population. Would you say that's an accurate statement?
No, it's spot on, because when you actually get the number to call the call center, and then you're linked up to the regional office that's within 50 miles of your location, they're going to be asking you questions right up front. Do you have any currencies to exchange or bonds to redeem? So when you show up for your appointment, they already know what you have. Now the question is, do you have the right stuff to show them that you should be given this money to take care of humanity?
Right.
So it's like an entrance exam.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't get in because you're a pretty face. No, you get in because of how you carry yourself. You're not walking in shorts and flip-flops.
Right.
No, you better be in your best attire.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have what you need, I would go out and get it right now, because you won't have time to get it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you need to get a nice suit, and they're not expensive, snappy casual, but don't have a pair of black shoes that are all scuffed up. I mean, remember, they're checking your heart. They're checking everything. You're getting the 1, 2, 3, top to bottom.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I thought it was an important distinction. I think that folks need to understand here, that we're really cool. What Dave is saying, it doesn't apply to everybody. It applies to the people who are watching this, the people who actually hold ZIMs and dongs and dinars, etc.
Right. Now, the person that doesn't have any currencies or bonds, they'll know right up front, and they won't even address those questions with them at all. They'll just skip those stations. Mm-hmm. Isn't a requirement. But see, that's what they're hoping for, the 99% of the people that somehow